Hey guys, my name is Kelly Hodges. I'm an accredited practicing dietitian and I'm currently studying to be a diabetes educator. This is my findings from my blood glucose level experiment where I tested the effect of various foods and dietary approaches on my blood glucose levels. So a little bit of background, I use the Freestyle Libre CGM, continuous glucose monitor, so that's the little white dot on the back of my arm there. I wore it for 2 weeks and I downloaded the app onto my phone. In regards to health, I am a healthy weight and I don't have diabetes. I don't have any heart conditions, cholesterol, blood pressure, anything else. This is an experiment of n=1, so there are obvious limitations of that. And then I did various tests throughout this time, so I'll talk a bit about the experiments that I did. The experiments I conducted was low carb versus Australian Dietary Guidelines. I had a look at different cereals, so Weet Bix, oats, Nutrigrain, Carmens Muesli and Cocoa Pops. I did meal replacements, so Sustagen and Up and Go. And I did a chai latte on an empty stomach versus in a fed state. And the last one was dates with and without peanut butter. Quick note about BGLs and insulin. So blood glucose levels and blood sugar levels, it is the same word, not the same word, it does mean the same thing. So those words can be used interchangeably. I will do my best to stick with blood glucose levels and BGLs. But if I do say sugars, just so you know what I mean there. Okay, so blood glucose, they do rise with consumption of carbohydrates, your carbohydrate-rich foods, bread, rice, pastas, starchy veggies, fruits, dairy products such as milk and yogurt, and then treat products, so cakes and pastries. Other factors which may affect blood glucose levels include exercise, stress, infection, and a woman's menstrual cycle. For the purpose of this experiment, I will let you know that I did not have my period through this time. Insulin is released to bring blood glucose levels down. So insulin is the hormone produced by the pancreas, and so when carbs are consumed, they're broken down into glucose, they go into the bloodstream, which is what the blood glucose levels are. As the blood glucose levels rise, insulin is released to help bring those blood sugar levels back down. One thing to know is insulin is lipogenic, meaning fat creating. So when you've got lots of carbohydrates, you're going to have quite high blood glucose levels. When you've got high blood glucose levels, you're going to need to produce a lot more insulin, or if you're not producing the insulin, you'll have to inject the insulin. And given that it's fat creating, the more insulin that you're needing, the more fat that you may be creating / struggling to lose weight as well. Okay, let's jump into it. So Australian Dietary Guidelines versus low carb. So this little table here is the Eat for Health guideline. So this is what I came across through my studies to be a diabetes educator, where they said as a starting measure for the nutrition for someone with diabetes, you can help them by jumping onto the Eat for Health, put in their requirements, and it will tell you how many serves of each food group that person needs, and then you're able to kind of help them piece together a bit of a plan, or they at least know how many serves of each food group they need. So I did this for myself. So my stats female, I'm age 29 and I'm breastfeeding at the moment. And so my daily serves that I required was veggies and legumes, 7.5 serves. I needed 2 serves of fruit a day. Grains, that was a really big one over there, 9 serves of grains in a day. And so that's like your cereal foods, cereals, rice, breads, that sort of thing. Lean meat and poultry, fish, eggs, tofu, nuts, seeds, legumes, beans. So like your protein foods, your lean options, 2.5 serves. reduced fat dairy products, 2.5 serves, and then discretionary items. And so discretionary is your treat foods as well as your fat food, so something like butter. And so anywhere between 0 to 2.5. And so I think I actually used 2 serves just so I could test the effects of them. So this is kind of what a meal plan looked like. Now, in the red there, you can see note both experiments were spur of the moment, so neither were planned out in advance. So this is what I threw together in the morning to consume through the day. So it's not perfect, but it gives you a bit of an idea. So with Australian Dietary Guidelines, using those Eat for Health serves that I went over before, brekkie was Weet Bix, some milk and a banana. Morning tea was a mandarin. Lunchtime was ham, cheese and salad sandwich. Afternoon tea was a couple of bits of toast with butter. And the reason being the toast with butter was just to try and get those grains up because I was struggling to get the grains in. Dinner was rice, veggies and lean meat. For the rice, it was I think it was about 1.5 cups, which was a lot of rice. And then dessert was condensed milk, and I chose condensed milk because when I was pregnant I craved condensed milk, and so I wanted to see its effect on my sugar levels. Low carb meal plan is just a general day for me, so 3 eggs with some butter. Lunchtime was meat and veggie, so leftovers, and I had some macadamias on that day. Afternoon tea was potato and beetroot chips, so those were leftovers and they're amazing. They're obviously higher carb. And then evening was just meat and salad. If we were to have a look at the breakdown of it. Sorry, let's just go back for a second. Okay, yes. So if we were just to have a look at the breakdown of it, so your Australian Dietary Guidelines meal plan, in regards to carbohydrates, I had 229 grams that day. General requirement is closer to about 180, but with the condensed milk at the end of the day, that actually did whack on an extra 40 grams. And so it is a bit higher than, I guess, what is recommended. But it is one of my discretionary items. So protein was 65 grams, which ends up being about 1.2 grams per kilo for my body weight. And then fat was 22 grams, so a low-fat approach. When you work out the energy, I do apologize, it says calories there. So 5,735 kilojoules or 1,372 calories. Now, if you jump across to the low carb meal plan on the right hand side, you can see carbohydrates are way down, so 35 grams in the day, protein was 104 grams, and then fat was, so the protein is closer to about 2 grams per kilo of body weight for myself. And then fat is, or it was on that day, 90 grams of fat. Now the energy for that, so 5,714 for kilojoules or 1,367 for calories. The really, really cool and interesting thing here is, like I said before, neither of these were actually planned out. And so I only did the macros for them afterwards and worked out the energy and all of that for them afterwards. And so the fact that on both of these days I consumed about 5,700 kilojoules, it's just really cool. Like, that's obviously how much my body needs and how much I eat regardless. So yeah, anyway, I just thought it was really cool that I ate similar amounts on both days, but such different distributions between carbs, fats and protein. Okay. Now, this is where the cool thing is. So the Australian Dietary Guidelines is on the left, so that's ADG, and the low carb is on the right-hand side. So this is the entire day. Now, if you have a look at the Dietary Guidelines, you can see I started eating, can you see my mouse? There you go. You can see I started eating around about here, and that's when I had my Weet Bix with my banana and my milk, and you can see my blood sugars went up to about just shy of 9 millimoles, and then they dropped all the way down. And then I had my morning tea. They went up, they dropped down, they went up, they dropped down. Oh my goodness, they went up. You can just see it's an absolute roller coaster, just up and down and up and down and up and down all day long. When you jump across into the low carb day instead, you can see I would have started my brekkie about the same sort of time. So probably around about 7 or 8 o'clock, I would have had my eggs. And you can just see my blood sugars. They went up to about 5.8 over there. They cruised along for the period of the day. You can see I had my lunch over there. They dropped down. You can see in the afternoon, actually, I had wait, what time is that? That's at 5 o'clock. No, this is my afternoon snack of my beetroot and potato chips, where they went up to, what would you call that, about 6.4, 6.5. That was the highest that they went, and that was like all the carbohydrates all in one sitting for me for that day. And then they dropped back down, and then I had my dinner, and now you can see this little lump over here. That little one, I was actually doing some other testing that evening. So I was testing oats. So oats were based on water and a teaspoon of sugar. And so that is actually not a low carb little spike over there. So yeah, you can just see the difference between what a day with the Australian Dietary Guidelines versus a low carb day looks like. So blood glucose levels for Australian Dietary Guidelines, anywhere between 3.8 to 8.9 millimoles. Jump across to the low carb, we're looking at about 3.1 through to about 6.4. So you can see there's not as much fluctuation. Now that's really important that there isn't as much, because you're wanting the slow and steady kind of approach for the day. As soon as they're going up and down, that's when the complications occur for someone who's got diabetes. So you can see the average blood glucose levels as well. So average for the ADGs is 6.8 millimoles, and that's throughout the course of the day. With that, you can see it obviously goes a lot higher, and then it also comes down. Average BGLs for a low carb day was 4.9. Now that's a difference of about 2 millimoles, which I think for someone who doesn't have diabetes, you're like, doesn't matter that much. But someone with diabetes, if you're able to drop your BGLs even half a millimole or 1 millimole, that's amazing. Like, it does tremendous amounts of benefits for you. So the fact you can actually drop it by just shy of 2 millimoles through a different approach was, just super, super cool. And so anyway, so that's the dietary guidelines with Eat for Health versus standard just low carb eating. Okay, so something else to note is just, I guess, how I felt. So like I said, I do usually follow a low carb approach. And so starting at the bottom with the low carb, I had stable energy levels all day long. I wasn't as hungry. I was satiated for a lot longer. I had normal concentration. I don't have an afternoon energy slump or anything like that. But when I was following the ADG sort of meal plan, I felt quite unwell and nauseous for the majority of the day. I was very tired. I kept yawning. In the afternoon, I had an energy slump, and I needed like a pick-me-up. I needed something to help me kind of keep going. Otherwise, I was just ready for a bit of a snooze. I was very hungry, and there was less concentration. And something I didn't mention here is that also I spent a lot of time in the kitchen prepping food, eating food, then cleaning up. And so I was just constantly eating, which I didn't enjoy that much. Okay, moving on, guys. So cereals. So all cereal serves were 1 cup, served with 1 cup of skim milk. Exception was rolled oats, which was half a cup of oats made on water and served with 1 teaspoon of sugar. And that was because half a cup of oats made on water is not delicious at all. And so I just put in a teaspoon of sugar, because I figured anyone who's having it on water, most of the time you're going to add in some sugar. You need a bit of sugar. And then Weet Bix, where I consume 3 Weet Bix because I'm a big eater. Okay, so over here, start with the Cocoa Pops. So 1 cup of Cocoa Pops, 1 cup of skim milk. Sugars went up to 7.9 millimole. The arrow points to the spike where I had the Cocoa Pops. Carmens Muesli. So this is Carmen's granola. It's the 5 grains 5 grains and seed granola. It was the Pink Lady and I think blueberry one. Sugars actually went higher. They went up to 8.1 millimoles. So Cocoa Pop 7.9, Carmen's granola 8.1. Over here we've got Nutrigrain. So again, 1 cup, and that went up to 8.7 millimoles. So higher again. Over here we've got the oats, and so half cup of rolled oats, 1 teaspoon of sugar made on water, 7.1 millimoles. So that one is the lowest one that I came across. And then of course the Weet Bix, the trusty Weet Bix. So 3 Weet Bix and a cup of skim milk, 8 millimoles. Yeah, and so that was just really interesting. So you can see all of your cereals, no matter what they are going to increase your BGLs quite significantly. Now, with the rolled oats, which has the lowest amount, I could have not had that teaspoon of sugar. And it would have been interesting to see those results. Sorry, I didn't do that. But in all honesty, rolled oats made on water is just not delicious. Now, I just wanted to show this one as well. So 3 eggs and a tablespoon of butter, 5.5 millimoles. And so that is at least a 2.5 millimole difference. And in some cases, just having a look, it's like a 3.2 millimole difference. Like if you were to compare Nutrigrain, the highest, with the eggs. So like I said before, like half a millimole is amazing. 1 millimole is incredible. So when you're talking like 2-3 millimoles, that is massive. When you've got someone with diabetes who's going up and down a lot and you're able to bring them down, this is, it's really, really significant and really exciting for someone with diabetes. Meal replacements. So on the left is 500 mils Up and Go vanilla, which raised them only to 6.5, which was really, really interesting. I was expecting them to go way higher. It does have lots of protein, and it does have fiber in there as well, and so the fiber would help to stabilize it. I've forgotten exactly what the fat is, but yeah, so 500 mils for Up and Go is classed as 1 serve, and so that raised it to 6.5 millimoles. When I had the Sustagen, and you can see I had that after the Up and Go, Sustagen's only 250 mils, so it's half the size. But in half the size, it raised it well above. So it raised it up to 7.1 millimoles, which again, if you just, I guess, always just go back towards a lower carb approach, and what I showed you before, where my sugars didn't go anywhere close to 7, like I think 6.5 or so was the highest they went for the day, having a 7.1 millimoles or like having that 7.1 millimoles, it is, I guess, just quite high. It's higher than what it needs to be. Okay. This over here is chai latte. Now, I just randomly went, and I drink chai lattes. I don't drink coffee, and so when I go to a cafe, I get a chai latte. I went to the local cafe, got my chai latte. I wasn't doing any experiments, and I was checking my blood sugars. You can see the red parts. That's when you dip down, which is classed as low blood sugars. But I was checking my blood sugars, and oh my gosh, they just kept on rising and rising and rising and rising. They went all the way up to 12 millimoles when I had a chai latte on an empty stomach. So I got up for the day, I went straight to the cafe, did some work, and had a chai latte. My sugars just skyrocketed. And so when I posted that, it was suggested by Tracy Macbeth, that I do it again after a fatty breakfast and just see the results. And so I did it with egg, bacon, and avo. So a couple of eggs, a few rashers of bacon, I think probably about half an avocado. And then I went back to the same cafe. I got the exact same chai latte. The same person made it. And I told them what I was doing. So I was like, please just make sure that you're doing this the exact same way. And really, really cool. My blood sugars only raised to 6.6 millimoles, which is a tremendous, it is just gigantic. Anyway, something to note is that some chai powders, for any chai drinkers, have 75 grams of carbohydrates per 100, which is 75% is carbs, which is essentially sugar, whereas others have less than 7 grams per 100 grams. So it makes such a massive difference to your blood glucose level. So any chai drinkers, when you're going to the cafe, you can ask to see the back of, like, you can see the nutrition of their chai lattes and get the one with the lowest amount of sugars. If it is kind of anywhere above like 8 or 9, I personally just wouldn't choose that one again. But I mean, when it's up at around 75 grams, you may as well just be having like sugar and milk. And so yeah, just something cool that I found out. And then the last experiment, guys, was the dates. And so dates are a lovely sweet option. So for dates, you can see on the left there, raise my blood sugars to 7.9. And then I had them again with peanut butter, and the peanut butter has the fat in them. And so with the peanut butter, so 2 tablespoons of peanut butter and the same for dates, it only raised up to 6.9, so 1 millimole less. And so that was really cool because I got to see the dates and the chai latte, both of those, when I consumed fat, it brought the sugars right down. So limitations of this experiment, so n equals 1, so I was my own guinea pig, and like I said, I just did it for my own benefit, but I just wanted to share my findings. I only did each test once, so it's not as though I went back and I retested to make sure that the data was accurate. Cereals, they're not all tested at the same time. So for example, I didn't test Nutrigrain at a standard breakfast time and then Weet Bix at a standard breakfast time, like first thing in the morning. I tested pretty much all my cereals in one day, and then a few on different days. And so therefore that could have had an effect on the results as well. And then the date comparisons are at different times of the day. So I had the dates at different times. I think one was like at lunchtime and one was at the end of the day. So the effects of that on the readings as well, there could have been an effect there. In summary, the low carb achieves much greater stability in blood glucose levels and a lower average blood glucose level by about 2 millimoles, which is absolutely huge for someone who has diabetes. I found that consuming fat with a meal reduces blood glucose rise a lot, and so that's something I didn't give enough credit for. I would always say fiber, but it turns out the fat is amazing. All cereals raise blood glucose an average of 8 millimoles, with the best option being rolled oats made on water, raising it only to 7.1. But then if you're having something like eggs, it's only to 5.5 millimoles. So that was my findings for my experiment. And so if you do have any questions, here's all of my contact details. I'd love to hear you. Or if you've got any anything that you're wanting to share, any findings that you've done yourself and that you're wanting to share with others, I would love to hear from you. And so you've got our email address there, you've got our website there, Facebook if you're wanting to follow along with anything, and then also our phone number for anyone inside of Australia. Outside of Australia, just do +61. But if you're outside, probably just email us. But yeah, guys, this, like I said, it was my own personal experience. It wasn't for educational purposes, and so therefore I just did it for myself. But because the results were pretty cool, I just wanted to share it with you. So I do hope that someone somewhere may find this beneficial. And if you got questions about it, or if you got concerns or queries, more than happy to hear from you. And yeah, I think that's all, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I might chat to you guys in the future.